The glaring flaws of the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit begin to come to light. I'm Marco Perry. Welcome to the Perry Platform. I've seen some people refer to the CERB as some type of UBI pilot, a universal basic income testing ground, but the reality is that's wrong. It's simply not universal, and that's one of the founding pillars of UBI. And that very fact there, the fact that not every Canadian qualifies for it, is creating a plethora of problems, as we'll point out throughout the episode. Even the federal NDP leader, Jagmeet Singh, is criticizing the current way the system is working. So, in case you didn't know, the CERB, or the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit, is meant to mitigate some of the economic fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic, and that's being done at the individual level. It's for you, the citizen. People lost their jobs, companies are closing, and we need some type of stimulus. Otherwise, we can't pay rent. People are going to be forced to make sacrifices. You might not be able to eat. And those are fundamentally injustices that shouldn't be allowed to fester in a place like Canada. The government has a role to step in and help the citizens out, at least temporarily, as we find our bearings in how to navigate this new terrain. So, the program pays out $2,000 per month for 4 months, or $500 per week. To qualify, though, you need to be completely out of work, and that's a problem. If you haven't been unemployed for 14 days in a row, you wouldn't qualify, and you would be forced to probably use the traditional EI payment methods, which are far less than this amount. Very quickly, let's do some math and point out one of the glaring flaws here. Weekly, as we said, this program pays out $500. The highest minimum wage in Canada is $15 per hour, and that occurs in Alberta. A person who works full-time, earning $15 an hour, pulls in about 35 hours a week, 7 hours a day for 5 days, because lunch isn't paid. That works out to be in the ballpark of about $525 per week. But keep in mind too, on that amount, you will pay taxes and deductions. Therefore, de facto, you will earn less money by working versus being unemployed and on the CERB. This is also using the highest minimum wage possible in Canada. In some places, the minimum is closer to $12 or $11. The delta is far larger there and further incentivizes you to not work. If you make far less money by working versus being unemployed, you will probably want to just be unemployed, reduce your risk, and reap the higher paycheck. Now, think about this. How does this affect many essential workers on the front lines, like those who have to stock grocery stores? Those jobs are minimum wage roles. They're making the $15 an hour. Do you want to blatantly tell those people that they are risking their lives and the health of their family for virtually no financial reason? That they would be simply better off by becoming unemployed? Now you're placing the onus simply on a form of social good. You should be proud of working because you're doing an essential service and we need you. Well, in reality, money is part of the consideration process there, and they should be treated fairly. The current situation is anything but fair. Those frontline workers are being screwed over. People who got laid off are making more money than them. So, therefore, the thought will inevitably pop into their head. Why not just get laid off myself? I would reduce my personal risk. I wouldn't be out on the front lines exposing myself, and I would still get paid the same amount of money, if not more. What reason is there for me to remain here aside from serving the social order, where they're simply just a pawn in the grand scheme of things? That's the truth. They're not being incentivized properly. These jobs aren't careers either. The people there aren't connected to them to a high degree. If they see a benefit by doing something else, they will reasonably take it. That's just the logical thing to do. And if we act in a way that's oblivious to that reality, we're going to doom ourselves. One of the criteria for the CERB is you need to be laid off. So what stops these people from acting in ways to bring about that reality? By doing things on the job that will inspire them to be laid off. Then, what do? What happens when a lot of frontline workers perform that same action? Or what if they protest? What if they unionize against that? We're going to be in some pretty serious trouble then, because nobody will be there to stock the grocery stores. Nobody will be there to help you check out. Then what happens? People need food. You might actually bring about a looting reality where people don't care anymore. They need to eat. They're going to go into the store, and whether or not if someone's there to help you pay, they're just going to do what they can. They're going to take the food and they'll deal with the aftermath in the future. When staying home is more lucrative than working on the front lines, you might bring about that situation. The government has incentivized incorrectly in this regard. They're demotivating you from going out and working. They're telling you that it's better to simply stay home, at least in the financial sense, and that's going to matter to a lot of people. At the very least, you inspire contempt among the frontline workers. They're not going to be happy about that. They're going to feel mistreated, and rightfully so. And in the worst case, you could face critical unemployment in the areas that we need people to be in. We could not thrive without them working right now. This is not universal. It's not a UBI. To think that it is just incorrect. We're not piloting any universal basic income program here. We're simply doing another form of EI. Some politicians are under the impression that UBI is inherently good. This is one form of it. The answer is no. It depends how it is administered, and here clearly it's not entirely correct. It can be very good in some situations, but it all depends on the formula that you use. You need a system that still incentivizes the behaviors that you desire, that society desires. You can't do one thing and hope for another. It's just asinine. Imagine a basic income program where you only get the benefit if you are not working. Then you're going to be surprised when people choose to not work. That's what's going to happen. Do you think people will be lining up to find a job if they can make more money from being unemployed and doing something else, especially in this pandemic environment where every time you step out and interact with somebody, it poses a risk to your health and you have to go home to a family maybe you can further infect? The incentives are just not there. Unfortunately, this is virtually what's happened here. The beauty of a true UBI is the universal aspect of it. That's what's most important. It lifts all boats in a country via a rising tide. If you were further before, you'll be slightly further now. If you were in the back before, you're going to be further. Everyone's going to benefit from it, and the tide is going to raise everyone. Nobody gets left behind. Everyone makes this income, and thus you can still better yourself by working. If you want to find a job, you're not going to be penalized for that. You'll just make more money. The idea of a UBI is fundamentally to provide a safety net for society to fall back on. If things get rough, if you are encountering an unfortunate circumstance, you're going to be okay. You won't be out on the streets and dying due to starvation or something. It takes care of you. You also aren't supposed to get your benefits clawed back for pursuing a job. That's simply you bettering your own condition, and that's a bonus. The UBI will still be sent to you. We incentivize you to actually find a job because you'll be able to raise your standard of living above the minimum. If we don't want a disgruntled workforce manning the front lines, it's either we pay them more or reduce the restrictions on the CERB and allow them to have that too. Even here, there is a counter argument to the benefit of raising wages. It's clear there's one path to go, and that's opening up the CERB. So the truth is that many of these minimum wage jobs are essential. We literally need them. They are imperative to our survival. If these grocery store clerks just decided to stop working, we wouldn't be able to get food anymore, and presumably we would all starve. But you shouldn't be confused though. There's something else to say here. That's not synonymous with saying that these jobs are high skill and hard to be replaced. It's not hard to find someone else who can fill that role, or maybe not even a person, a robot. Low skill jobs, even if they are essential, are being replaced first by AI and automation because they are the easiest to craft a formula around. They are the easiest to replicate. You may reap the benefits of a higher wage today if that ends up happening, but in the near future, companies will have that much more incentive to replace you with a technology, or invest in the creation of one that can do that job, like stock shelves. It can happen. That's not super complicated. A robot could feasibly do that even today. The only thing holding the company back might be cost there. The game is all about incentives. If you raise the incentive to get a robot, more companies might do that. And therefore, after all this, those jobs are gone. You might just need one person to oversee a fleet of machines versus everyone doing the individual task. This is something that happened with cashiers at places like Walmart and McDonald's and even Loblaws. The amount of cashiers are slashed because only one of them now has to stand there while there are a dozen machines that people are using by themselves. It's really a balancing act here. To go full throttle in one direction is going to produce a negative outcome. We just have to plan for it. Now, yes, the people who are working the front lines right now in public are heroic. They are providing a vital service that enables the country to function. Yes, they are being treated unjustly given the current CERB conditions. I wouldn't be surprised if many of them just opted to become unemployed because they make more money and the risk would be lower. There really isn't any reason for them to continue working, aside from the social producing a good outcome. But realistically, you can't eat off that. Yes, raising minimum wages could be something that makes them want to work more, but that will come with drawbacks in the future. Also, yes, giving the CERB to everyone will also have a negative consequence, like a far larger bill. But we need to incentivize properly here, picking the lesser of the evils. Really, the situation sucks no matter how you slice it. We're looking to make things as beneficial for the most amount of people as possible, while still being reasonable. The answer to me seems like loosening the CERB to allow every working Canadian to access it, something more akin to a real UBI. You improve the current situation, you cover people who need money but don't currently qualify, and we get a truer UBI pilot that we can learn from. In its current form, it's not that. Jagmeet Singh, the leader of the federal NDP party, is correct about this one. According to CBC News, he is calling for universal access to the CERB, which is what I'm doing as well. I support him on that. He wants a liberal government to lift all criteria on it and just enable it for everyone. He's concerned because he has heard supposedly from many Canadians who do not qualify for the program. The list includes students who don't qualify, people who are still earning a small income. So let's say you were used to working 35 hours a week, but due to reduced business, your company slashed your hours. Now you maybe work 10 hours per week. You wouldn't qualify for the CERB because you have to be unemployed to attain it. So now you make far less money. You can't pay your bills, you can't pay your rent, but here you are receiving no benefits. I would consider that to be undue hardship due to COVID-19, but they aren't covered. So Jagmeet has his reasons for wanting to lift the restrictions. I have mine as well. You can add them together. Overall, some people are being left in the cold, as he's saying, and what I'm saying is we're dealing with frontline workers who are making less than those on the benefit. You are punishing people for working, basically. That's madness. The incentives are not aligned to promote the best outcome. Trudeau says that he will work on ironing out these issues, and Singh promises to hound him. That's one of the good things of a minority government. Trudeau can't simply act solely based on what he thinks. He has to consult the other parties, and hopefully they will debate and bring about a better formula. They'll bring about a better package. There's actually going to be a special debate around this coming up. Another consideration too that I should mention is if you roll out this benefit for everyone, the Canadian government can effectively cancel EI and other welfare programs. People will all have a right to a baseline income now, $2,000 per month. That will remove the purpose of these other benefits, and the cost of them can be allocated here. That might theoretically reduce our costs a little bit. I presume too that this counts as income when you receive it, so those in higher income brackets, thus in need of the money less, will pay back more to the government via taxation anyways. So it's not like someone earning $200,000 will receive the $2,000 in pure cash. When tax season rolls around, they will pay back some of that according to their tax bracket. People who earn less money will keep more of it. Now, aside from all of this too, just bringing up UBI in general, it's a complicated idea and it's not easy. I am not thrilled that some movements here have dumbed it down to laughable proportions. This can make or break your country. You have to realize that. It can raise everyone out of abject poverty. It can actually get rid of poverty entirely within your country, or it can bankrupt your nation. There comes a problem when you treat money willy-nilly. If we're printing it out en masse and not taking care of things like cost, well, we can bring about hyperinflation. Look no further than Zimbabwe for an example of that. One thing to keep in mind about money is that the actual value of it isn't tied to the monetary unit. To have $20 or $100 or $1,000, it's relative to what you can get. In and of itself, that 20 or 100 doesn't really matter. In Zimbabwe, 1,000 units of the currency can get you one peanut maybe. This is because when the money started to be printed at an unreasonable rate, people lost trust in the currency. They realized that money only works when society is valuing it, because it represents a means to get something else. But when people say this currency might fail, we don't want it anymore, that's going to impact how valuable it is. So you might have gone to sleep before that, the night before, and you had $1,000 in your bank account. You can pay for rent with that maybe. Then the next day, people don't want your money anymore. It's inflated to astronomical heights. 1,000 units can only get you that single peanut now. And on the world stage, that will be entirely destructive to the economy. There are consequences to doing this here. We can't simply pay for anything and everything. You have to have a plan around it. You You have to debate around it. You need the right idea to go forward. Another factor that we have to account for with this UBI discussion is the fact that it could easily become a dangerous political weapon. As politicians campaign on more free money, that's an easy way to get votes. Let's imagine here we have two rival people. Usually, your platform will have 2 or 3 main things that people vote for. At the top of the list, it can easily be UBI now, regardless of your party. If one person says, I'm going to make it 2,500, oh, that's pretty enticing. That will give you an immediate benefit. You might not care about anything else, but now the rival will say, hey, I'm going to do 2,600. And the other will say, I'm going to up mine to 2,700. And that will go on indefinitely if left to the hands of the politician because they want to win. And they know giving you money is a good way to go about doing that. That's something you want. It might be the most impactful thing in their entire platform. But we can't base the UBI on what a politician campaigns on. It has to be based in fact. We need something like the Bank of Canada for UBI. An individual party who's going to act without bias that they will set it. We can't have a politician campaigning on this thing here. That has to be set in law, and we have to think about these because, once again, they come with consequences. If we want to make our elections more of a clown show where everyone's just tossing around bigger checks to people, that's one way to do it. Similar to interest rates, it's better if a central authority, an expert, is the people who are deciding on it. If we have this autonomous unit who is free of political consideration, that's going to produce the best outcome because they can act for the long run. They can plan out a 20 or 30-year horizon. A politician will likely be more concerned with the short term because their term is short. 4 years, they're going to be acting in a way to get themselves reelected in the future. They're going to act in the here and now, and that's not synonymous with producing the best product for all of Canada indefinitely. We also have to understand the true cost of a UBI program and how to account for that. How do we get money to pay for it? We can't just print money. We see in recent news that Canada is selling LAVs to Saudi Arabia, $14 billion. We may have been pushed towards that because we need money to fund the CERB right now. We don't want to sacrifice our ethics in the sake of money. I propose that sometime in the future we'll have to look at something like an efficiency tax. That might be the best way to fund it. We call in some of these savings the corporations realize from automated staff. Now in the future, there probably won't be much low-skill labor. Machines and AI will take over. The company will save a lot of money from that. These people were getting paid a minimum wage. They had to have benefits and whatever. Vacation time. Things that were attributed to them by the law. The machines aren't covered in that regard. They don't make an hourly wage. They need one-time cost to buy them and maintenance. That's going to be far cheaper than paying one person $30,000 or so every year. So, there is an efficiency there. The corporation is benefiting on the back of society. They're not providing jobs anymore, and you're still a patron to their company. I see no reason why the government can't go in there and say, hey, you're saving X amount of money, we're going to take 10% of that and use it to pay back to our society. Use it to make sure people have money to even come to your store in the first place. It works for the company as well. If some of the projections are right, and 30 to 40 to 50% of the entire nation is no longer able to find work because their skills don't match with the market, well, that could be 30 to 40 to 50% less sales for the company. They're not going to want that. It's actually in their best interest to find a way to productively redistribute some of the efficiency, to find a way to ensure people have money to still be a patron to their corporation. We have to leverage that. Now, as you can see, this isn't simply a matter of printing billions of dollars and skyrocketing the debt and hoping that people in the future will handle it. There's a lot of nuance here with the UBI discussion. If we implement a lackluster policy, it can destroy our economy. It can cripple our country. We have to talk about it and flesh things out. We have to learn. One good way to learn is through a pilot. We have a unique opportunity here. Make the CERB universal. Try and see how things work, and we can experience some of the downside. There's probably so many things that I'm overlooking here with UBI. It hasn't been done on the scale that we want it to be on. Here's a chance to find out what can go wrong and what can go right. We should learn from it. We should try. It just seems like a golden opportunity to me, and we should capitalize. This UBI discussion requires responsibility and forethought. Let's make the program right now truly universal and just extract some knowledge from that. we can position ourselves better for the future, and overall, people need money right now. Let's get it done. So, that now brings me to the end of our conversation for today. You can find me online at perryplatform.org, my new website. I post articles there and just information about me. You can also find me on social media at Perry Platform. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you soon.